All right, let's jump into it, guys. Jacob Mefford, FFL Cornerstone. Excited to be your guest panelist here for our guest trainer on the team huddle. So let's jump into it. I'm going to cover these numbers. I can't figure out how to share the screen, so I'm just going to read it off. So let's go over the top 50 weekly submit for we had 185 riders. We helped 740 families. We had 13 new riders over the last week. And I'm just going to tell you the top 10. So we had Gabe, who came in with 26 families helped, Colton D with 31, Ray M 26, William L 17, Derek S 17, Laura M 16, Carlos S 16, Mac Agabor 13, Deanna D 13, Brandon Kitchings 12. Let's just keep going. Ginger Leclatter 11, Kate A 11, Carlos V 11, Patricia J 10, Deanne G 10. So yeah, good stuff, guys. And then, yep, I'm not going to keep going all the way through the 50. So sorry, I can't share that screen, but I want to be able to jump into the trading. So, and we had 13 brand new riders. That's huge, guys. New blood is the lifeblood of every single business. So congratulations, Oscar H, brand new rider, helped 6 families. It looks like in their first week. JT 5. Justo G 2, Eric S 2, Talia B 2, Zena S 2, Eliano F 1, Sebastian R 1, Bailey M 1, Toby W 1, Morgan M 1, Sarah B 1, Ashley B 1. And then overall top 25 issued for the month so far. Martin E month to date 73, Cynthia K 60, Mac 46. Zeke 40, Carlos S 23, Shannon G 22. This is February 25th through the 10th of March. So Devin B 18, Matthew S 18, Colton D 16, Cynthia P 16, Laura M 15, Malcolm D 14, David C 14, David D 14, Carlos S 14, David C 13, Jason E 13, Robert K 13. Shwana S 13, Victor A 13, Rosalinda K 12, Joseph C 12, Mina N 11, Jacob M me 11, and Elaine Flinchbaugh 11. So good job, guys. That's what it's all about. Families getting helped. So let's jump into it. Yep, Robert, that's true. It just goes to prove you don't have to be a genius on tech to be great at telesales. That is true. So, all right, guys, let's jump into it. So I'm going to be raw, authentic. Those of you know me know I don't know how to do it any other way. So my topic today is telesales virtually. Okay. So first off, background. I started out in the home like everybody else. I called all of the same type of leads that we all are taught to work. I did instance. I've done internet, Facebook, final expense, age stuff, mortgage, fresh mortgage, retros, you name it. I've worked it. The only thing I haven't worked yet is live transfers. I'm going to try those out soon. But I've done pretty much all of it. And I was able to go out and have success in the home with all of those, the way that we taught it, old school. And because of the industry where it's going, my opinion is really it's a hybrid model is the future. Some people love being out in the home still. Some people, love doing it virtually. I live out, those of you that know me, if you don't know me, I'm a Ozark kid. I live out in the middle of 40 acres with my wife. I got 3 beautiful kids, and I love people, but I don't really like them. I think you're allowed to do that, right? We're called to love people, but you don't necessarily have to like them. And so I like living out in the middle of nowhere. I live in a town of 700 people. I didn't move out in the middle of nowhere because I wanted to travel in the middle of somewhere, right? I didn't want to, I moved out of the city for a reason. I don't like being in concrete jungles as a general rule of thumb. And so I wanted to get off the road. So before it was cool, I started figuring out how to do this virtually. And so, figured out a system for me, and I'm going to give you my perspective. And I'm not saying it's the perfect perspective. I'm not saying it's the only perspective. But since I've been asked to have the floor today, I'm going to give you my perspective, and hopefully, you can get something out of it. I would encourage you to take notes, go through what I'm saying, go through all the information that I'm saying, try it on. And then at the end of it, if it works for you, great. Apply what you want to apply. The rest of it, you can throw it away. Say this guy's crazy, doesn't work for me, or I don't want to roll that way. Okay. And this, so whether you're brand new or whether you've been in the game for a while, there's going to be something for everybody and also in between. Okay. And I will tell you up front, I'm not the best in the game. I'm not the fastest horse on the track. I'm not the best sales guy in the game. I'm pretty persistent. I'm decent at figuring out what my strengths and my weaknesses are. I'm really good at developing systems that work for me and staffing my weaknesses, if that makes sense. So I would encourage you to figure out a way to do the same. In this business, it's very interesting because we're trying to make a model that's replicable, that's duplicable. And the thing is that it's, what we do here is not really precision. It's blunt force trauma. It's very simple. We buy leads of somebody that at one point in time had an interest in protecting their life with life insurance. We're going to make phone calls to those people and we're going to set appointments. We're either going to close them over the phone, we're going to close them on Zoom, or we're going to go sit in front of them and close them that way. And then we rinse and we repeat and we teach others to do the same. Now, you can look at all the systems, you can go sit down, you can look at all the videos in the whole wide world, in the whole wide world of FFL, and we have the best training in the game. And you're going to, at the end of that, at most, those trainings are going to take you maybe 70, 80% of the way. 70 to 80% of your journey can happen through learning vicariously through, spaced repetition and aggressive trainings, and one thing I'll just tell you, here's a tip, is if in the beginning, you need to put yourself on an intensified learning curve and you need to not be disciplined. You need to be obsessed in the beginning. There's a huge difference. If you want to master your craft, you need to be obsessed. Meaning that you gather up your family like I did and say, listen, it's going to be rough for 90 days of pain for a lifetime of gain. Some of you see some old names here, right? There's something to that. And in the beginning, I'm like, hey, I'm trying to master my craft. I'm going to put in the work. And then when I'm not doing major time by selling insurance or recruiting others to sell insurance and training to do the same, then I'm going to be training myself. What does that look like? I'm going to be staying up late. I'm listening to, I'm watching all the YouTube videos. I'm going through the webinars. I'm on something like this, right? And I'm going to try to master my craft. So in the beginning, become obsessive. Now, you're not going to be able to sustain that pace forever. And you don't need to sustain that pace forever. But you need to go all in and really immerse yourself in order to learn this sport, because this is a game that does have a learning curve. So at best, we can take you 70, 80% of the way. So, but that last 20 to 30% has to happen in the field. 1 hour in the field is better than 20 in the classroom. Period. End of story. You've got to get in the trenches and you got to be willing to get kicked in the gut, get your teeth knocked in, and you got to be able to pick yourself back up, take your, pay your dues. The dues must be paid, whether you pay them in FFL or you've paid them in another insurance game. The dues have to be paid. So if you have 70% consensus and you're 70% ready, you need to act. And you act your way into feeling, you don't feel your way into acting, right? So you get in the trenches and the rest of it, you're going to learn as you go. So some of the things I'm going to tell you today, you're going to take that and you're going to have to go out and you're going to apply it and you're going to have to make it your own. Okay. Everybody's got a little bit different flavor, a little bit different style, different skill sets, different backgrounds, things like that. So you have to craft it and tweak it and make it your own. Okay. So anyway, I was out in the home and then I decided, hey, I don't want to be on the road anymore. I just, I like going to my little office up the road. I like grinding it out. And I like being able to go home to my 40 acres and sit in a rocket chair, watch my kids run around half naked, playing in the mud, shoot some deer, go fishing. That's my jam, right? That's what I wanted to do. So what I did, and I'll just tell you what I've done over the last year. So here's some numbers. So last year, I did 225,000 in issue paid. I wasn't Hall of Fame. I didn't break all the record books. But I did write 225,000. 100% of that was all virtually. Okay. And my persistency is pretty dang good. I've got about an 80% persistency rate in my Americo. So, I know that I'm writing solid business. So clearly whatever I'm doing is working. I will tell you, I'm not as profitable as I would like to be. Like Ginger Licklider, Brandon Kitching, some of these guys that are really crushing it. And in fact, I was just on the phone before. Thank you, Ginger, by the way. If you're listening in, I was picking her brain, right? We're always iron sharpens iron. We're always trying to get better. But I was looking at numbers and I realized that, that these guys are just running, they're buying more leads, they're running more numbers. So their numbers are higher than me. They just worked harder than me. That's really it. At the end of the day, you need to compare apples to apples to, instead of apples to oranges. Sometimes we look at a leaderboard and we think, what are they doing? Truly, yes, they're probably more skilled than you, but that's because they're doing it more, right? More repetitions, more times at the plate. They're outworking you, right? So I do primarily mortgage. I will tell you that mortgage is like, it's addicting. It's great. So for those of you running around saying, "Ooh, I want mortgage mailers all day," that's great. They are awesome. Made a lot of money on them. But I'm going to tell you, when you're paying 50 to 80 to 90 bucks a lead versus, you know, 2, 3, 4, $5 a lead with instance and whatnot, doing one call closes, you know, you're going to be a lot more profitable on those than you are necessarily jumping into mailers. Okay. So in the beginning, for most of the year, I did nothing but Zoom. And then the game changed. And what do I mean by the game change? Well, COVID actually helped the entire industry. It actually made it better for virtual. So there was a lot of companies that were still running their operation like it was 1980. There were some carriers that just, they weren't telesales friendly. And then because of COVID, they were forced to finally innovate and become more virtual friendly. And so with that, you know, obviously FFL, you know, they built the entire thing at the kitchen table. It wasn't that they weren't wanting to share about the virtual side. It's just that wasn't their main playbook, right? If I'm going to go on a squad and I'm going to play with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, guess what? I'm going on a squad with a guy like Tom Brady. I'm going on to a team that's going to be a pass first, run second, right? The only reason why you run is to set up play action pass. So if I'm used to smash mouth football and I'm used to being on a running squad, you know, you just need to understand the playbook of the team that you're on. So the playbook that FFL had that worked obviously very well because they're the fastest horse on the track, was getting out in the living room and being at the kitchen table. But you know, eventually, obviously they embraced it. And when they did, it just opened it up. And so when all of these other major players started getting into the telesales and the virtual place, iron does sharpen iron. And so it started to raise the lid. So what was funny is, you know, first off, for those of you that are trying to maybe come out of the home and trying to figure out how to do virtual, it's very awkward. It's like putting your feet, you know, your shoes on different feet in the beginning. I get that. But if you just do it and you just wrap your head around it, eventually it will become comfortable if you allow yourself to learn some new habits. Well, I went from the home to Zoom, and I was forcing everybody either onto Zoom or FaceTime. Okay. And I wouldn't let anybody do the phone because I was scared of the phone. I thought, well, you can't close over the phone. Well, then all of a sudden, man, it started opening up, and like Josh Williams and some of these guys came in, and they started doing one call closes, and they proved that it could be done, and they proved that it could be done on a big scale. And so I thought, hey, let's start going to that. So I can tell you that in the last 4 or 5 months or so that I've gone, it's totally flip flopped. I've actually gone now. I'm 90% phone. So most of my sales have been pre-booked. Yes, I used a dialer for most of last year, but I just got done using a dialer and I'm back to dialing my own. And so I can tell you now that I'm setting up one call closes. And of course, if I can't get them to sit with me right then and there, then I'm going to book a normal appointment like anybody. Find time for my computer to go to sleep. Sorry about that, guys. So hopefully we're still good. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, it looks like the mic's still on. So primarily, like I said, it's become one call closes. And so, and then of course, if I can't book them, then I book another appointment. You know, no more than hopefully 24 to 48 hours. So I'm going to kind of jump into, you know, my numbers and how I set the stage. So most of last year I ran 3 days. I would run Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And my goal was to try to get my dialer to book me 10 appointments a day was the goal. Okay. Typically my appointments last an hour or less. And it's a lot more efficient and effective than even when I was in the home. So I would run Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. Now I would try to book 10 appointments in a week, but depending on the lead flow, that was the goal. Most of the time we wouldn't book that. On average, I think it was somewhere between 20 and probably 25 appointments a week. Okay. And the 50% rule, that's the number that you should be hitting, in my opinion. If you're not hitting it, then you need to tweak something and get a little bit better. So I would, if I had 20 appointments booked, then I should be sitting on about 10 of those. And if I'm sitting on 10 of those, I should be closing out about half of those. Now, some people have a higher closing rate. I know Ginger, I think, has like a 60, 70% closing rate. There's others that do too. That's why I'm trying to learn from Ginger. And she also has a higher AP average than I do. But that's okay, right? You don't have to be the best in the game. You just have to be, persistent. So I would close probably about half of those, and I average about, I don't know, 1,000 to 1,200 AP per, right? So that's somewhere between that $5,000 and $7,000 a week on average is what I would close. And if you look at, 225,000 or whatever that I close, that averages out to be about 20 grand a month or something like that, right? Now I didn't run 3 days a week all last year. I didn't start running. I only ran 2 days a week, which is rough, right? I mean, I should have been running more. I'll tell you, the one pitfall that I realized last year is I should have run more. I should have. There's no excuse not to. And so I upped that to 3 days a week. The last, I think, like November, December. No, December, I think, was the first month. So most of last year, I did that 225,000 on just 2 days a week. Okay. And then December upped it to 3. And now I'm actually I'm basically trying to book out 4. And so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are my dial days. And, so booking those out and doing that. Now, since I'm also dialing for myself now, there is a little bit more flexibility, which is kind of nice. I can hit my leads as they come in fresher. And so my ratio should be better. It always is. If you're dialing your own leads, you are going to have a better ratio than if you have a dialer. That's just, you will have some slop if you're using a dialer. Now, in the beginning, let's talk about, like, if you want to go virtual, you're going to hear about different people with systems. And so for me, I have 3 filters and that I kind of put everything through, right? I have eliminate, automate, delegate. So what I mean by that is I look at every process that I'm putting myself through, and I'm always about DMO, daily method of operation, because as you can tell, I'm a little bit scatterbrained. So for me, the way that I manage that is through rituals, like routines and systems that employ me. So that way it keeps me from waking up tomorrow and trying to figure out what to do, whether I feel like it or not. I put myself in a position where I'm employed. That's why I did like using a dialer quite a bit. Now I'm dialing more on live Zoom rooms. That's a big clue, by the way. If you're suffering in silence, you're not going to make it very long, in my opinion. I think even if you're kind of introverted like me, where I enjoy working on my own, actually, necessarily being in a team environment, my natural personality is to kind of be more of a loner. Then, but you're not. No man is into an island. Like it's not. You're not. You can't neglect. You can't neglect the assembly. You can't neglect the group. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, if you're remote in a marketplace, it's going to be Zooms are going to be, in my opinion, Zooms are going to be more crucial than ever before. And by the way, success leaves clues. If you look at Josh Williams, if you look at Nita, and those guys, if you look at the organizations that are growing the fastest, they are utilizing live Zoom dial rooms. Okay, they are, because if you're going to do virtual sales, there's a good chance that you're not going to necessarily be in an office. You're going to be pulling yourself out of an office, wanting to work from home or something like that. In the beginning, that sounds cute, but if you're by yourself, you're not going to have anybody else that's holding you accountable and raising your lid. So how do you get an office environment? It's a virtual Zoom office. That's that you need. So you need to find a good Zoom group that you can jump in, and there's tons of them everywhere that you can get in and dial and listen and get critiqued and be held accountable and have that camera on. So I got rid of my dialer, but I instantly put in something that forces me to be employed. Okay. And so now the live Zooms, force me to show up. So because people know whether I'm there or not, camera's on. And so it's forcing me to employ myself. Okay. So that's key, is if you're going to make the transition, in my opinion, you need to jump into that. And so again, eliminate, automate, delegate. So I look at processes and I'll go through and I'll ask myself, what is redundant? What part of this process is a waste of time that I can honestly eliminate? I chop it up. And then whatever's left over after that, I think to myself, what can I automate? Okay, what is something that I can do once in a system like Calendly, Phone Burner, something like that I can take a little time, set up a system, and it's going to make my life so much more effective and efficient. And so I'll automate what I can. And then, of course, I try to delegate what is left over after that. And anything left over after that is where I make my money. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's how I look at processes and how I build businesses and how I scale for me or anything else, like whether I'm doing it here or somewhere else. So in this particular instance, I'm talking to the brand new person. Let's say you're like, hey, I'm in the game. I want to learn telesales. Where do I start? Well, number one, you need to write the number 100 down. Write the number 100 and you need to circle it. Okay. 100 appointments. That is the magic number. What I mean is you need to sit down and you actually need to fill out the financial inventory sheet on 100 people that you're going to pitch insurance. I don't care if it's over the phone or the one call close. I don't care if it's on Zoom. I don't care if it's in the living room. The number is 100. Don't even look at the scoreboard until you've gone through 100. That is your learning curve. And here's what I can promise you. After you set out on 100 appointments, I can confidently look any man and woman in the eye and tell you, I can drop you off anywhere in the world with a stack of leads and a laptop and a phone, and you can make a very strong income for your family. You know, in my opinion, in like the six figures. Not everybody. You know, we got to be careful with what we say these days, right? So, but the reality of it is, I believe that you can make a very strong, solid income at that point. Okay. And that's your learning curve. And so what I would do if I was brand new, starting over, some of the pitfalls that I would have avoided is I would have, number one, stop trying to avoid the ass whoopings. Yes, I just said that. Stop it. Stop trying to avoid it. Stop it. What you need to do is you need to find the most uncomfortable thing that you can do, and you need to do that. Okay. What you need to do is you need to start like we all start. You need to go into the CRM and you buy the cheap stuff. You buy the old leads, the aged leads. You start out on final expense. That's where you get your teeth cut. And here's the reason why. Because even if I hand you an $80 mortgage lead, guess what? You're brand new and you suck. You suck. We all sucked when we started. That's okay. You got to keep doing it till you don't suck anymore, right? So you start out on that and you stack the deck in your favor. You know, if you have a limited budget, $500 to $1,000 to start or something like that, then I'm going to buy what I can get the most swings at the plate. The stuff that I got the biggest chance to grind. So $1,000 might buy you, 20 mortgage leads. That's not enough to grind. That's not enough. That's not enough chances for you to swing at the plate when you're new. That same 1,000 will buy you 100 plus instants. And if you're on work spots and you're getting the discounts, it could buy you even more, right? So start out with the cheap stuff. And honestly, I would, if it were me and you want to do telesales, I would definitely start with one call closes. That's what I would be. That is the future, in my opinion, of scaling this thing, especially for the brand new person, because it's a very low barrier of entry, right? So you get a hold of that stuff. And so the next thing I would do is I would leverage Phone Burner, right? We have trainings on that. Get on Phone Burner, and Phone Burner is going to allow you to cover more ground. It's going to allow you to set up some automation in your life. So you can sit down in 8 hours, you can cover more ground, in 8 hours than what you could in 16 hours without it. Okay. So leverage that. It's like $100, 130 if you get the text package or whatever that's included, the premium, whatever. So I would definitely be utilizing the heck out of Phone Burner. And so again, and getting in those Zoom rooms now, and then eventually, you can set up stuff to where you can start, delegating things, right? I have staff now, so like, why is my retention rate better than when I first started? One, I know how to tie it up better than when I first started. This thing goes to sleep on me one more time. Sorry, guys. So anyway, one of the things that I would do, like, I have staff now, is my point. So, I took all of the crap that I didn't want to do, right? I've automated what I can using Phone Burner, Calendly systems, things like that, that send out text reminders and email reminders and things like that in order to set the stage properly. And then I delegate the other stuff I don't like to do, right? And, in the beginning, I couldn't afford to do that. But as soon as I got good enough and I had enough cash flow into the business, by the way, if for those of you that just want to sell insurance, then ignore this. Maybe you can do it all on your own. But I'm assuming most of you are wanting to build an agency, meaning you want to have a team of agents where you're earning overrides, you have some leverage in your life, right? So write this down: leaders eat last. Leaders eat last. So, another barrier of entry I see is somebody comes in, they have an employee mindset. They don't realize they're now in business for themselves. They need to manage it right. So instead of taking that extra money and going to blow it or buy a bigger car or go out to dinner and suddenly, buy more comfort zone to make yourself comfortable, stay in the uncomfortable zone while you're scaling this thing and you're building it, and take that money and pour it back in, right? You got to feed the golden goose that lays the golden eggs. If you want a bigger goose, you got to feed it. If you want bigger eggs, you're going to need a bigger goose. How do you get a bigger goose? You got to feed it. What do you need to feed it? Time and resources, right? That's your business. So as you're scaling, eventually you're going to, as soon as you can afford a staff, I think you should get one. Like in the beginning, it might just be a simple admin that's doing your thank you cards and stuff. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of how to set the stage on getting into telesales, right? In the beginning, one call closes, buying the cheap stuff, and then eventually you're going to graduate into some other stuff, right? As you make a sale, you take that money, you reinvest it, you're starting to get better, your ratios are going to get better. So you're going to start getting into maybe some Facebook final expense, maybe get into some Facebook mailers at one point, or not Facebook mailers, but final expense mailers. And eventually maybe you do get into some mortgage, right? Every great agent that I've seen in this game, whether they're on the phone or not, has a mixture of leads. They're not completely dependent on one, because the flow, they need a constant flow coming in weekly in order to get the appointments they need, to get the swings at the plate, to be able to run the numbers, to be able to make the closes that they need, right? So you're gonna have a balance of all that, but you'll allow to scale into that, right? Little by little, you'll get better, you'll have more revenue and everything like that, okay? And then so I'll just kind of tell you, what I did, right? So I went through that new phase, and I'm just going to have to give you my perspective of like what my numbers were. All right. So after doing all that, I was able to put myself in a position where I could work exclusively mortgage. I need to get off mortgage because, like I said, it's not off of mortgage, but I need to get into other things as well, because mortgage can get addicting. But again, it's harder to scale on just mortgage. So what I would do is I would get I would spend somewhere on average, I think I spent about $2,000 to $2,500 a week on leads, right? I've got mail drops coming in. And so those leads, that money just comes out weekly, whether I like it or not, to secure my areas, right? It's another thing that forces me to be employed. So I kind of like that because it forces me to put skin in the game. And then what was happening from there is obviously if I'm booking that, I already went through my numbers on that. Sorry. So if I booked that, it was 20 to 30. I would sit, somewhere on that 10, I would close that 5 to 10. So you guys got my numbers off that. Sorry. I'm getting scrambled. I had some notes here. So, but moving forward, what it's going to look like for me is I'm going to try to gather some other mortgage areas. That's the other cool thing too, is if you're virtual, you can actually reach out, so like if you're in Arizona, or if you're like in a very competitive marketplace where it's really hard to get mailers because there's a lot of other agents in the marketplace. What's nice is it allows you to go out into other markets and actually be able to service areas that maybe weren't getting service. Oh, that's another big key. I was going to tell you, why is my persistency rate higher? I was talking to Ginger about this, about when you're in very competitive environments, when you're doing mortgage, a lot of times you'll sell something and you might have somebody come in behind you and actually replace it because new mortgage leads are hot. Well, what I love about working like virtually is I can buy up counties that are sparsely populated that nobody running face to face wants to run because it's not worth it. Maybe there's just a few leads that come in on that county every few weeks, and there's just not enough leads to justify a person that's running face to face to go into that marketplace to run those. So those are my favorite because I don't care if there's one lead, I'm calling it. I'm not having to travel, so I don't have the travel expense. And so what's nice is some of those sparsely populated counties, by getting more of those counties, what's happening is I'm selling those appointments and I'm not having to compete with 50 other agents sometimes on the mortgage data that comes in. That's been phenomenal for me. I can tell you that because I'm not having to deal as much with people coming in on the back end to replace and things like that. Okay. When you're dealing with mortgage. And so let me jump in. So that's enough as far as setting the stage. So let me talk a little bit about how I sell, actually the how-tos of actually how I sell, telesales or virtually or whatever. Okay. So there's a few things that are different on the telesale side or selling virtually than in the home. You'll find that in the home, you have more room for error as far as time. You don't have that luxury on the phone. When I'm on the phone, it literally, I set it up like this. So if I have an appointment, let's say it's pre-booked, and I call them up and I'm like, hey, John, it's Jacob, field underwriter for your mortgage protection file. We had a 1 o'clock appointment to discuss your options. Still good for you and Mary? Yeah, perfect. If it's a phone, then I'll say, all right, is Mary with you? Yeah, she is. Great. Why don't you go ahead and put it on speakerphone so that we can all hear, okay? All right, fantastic. So first off, before I even get started in this, I just want to lay some framework for this call before we even jump into it, okay? I want you to remember the 3 P's of mortgage protection. First P, meaning that it's private. Second P, it's personal. Third, it's portable. P number 1, meaning private, meaning that sometimes there's a confusion that some people think that this is a coverage that's maybe forced on them. It's wrapped up into their monthly mortgage bill. That's not. This is a voluntary coverage. It's a bill that you have full control over, okay? So if you want the coverage, you can have it. If you don't want the coverage, you don't have to have it, okay? It's completely private. Second is that it's personal, meaning it's attached to you guys, not the specific loan or the house. The reason why that's key is because if it hasn't happened yet, more than likely your mortgage will probably get sold on the secondary market. And if a new lender shows up, the nice thing is your mortgage protection is separate, so it's not messed with, okay? So that it helps protect that mortgage protection for you. Third is that it's private. Or excuse me, portable, meaning that let's say it's later on down the road, you ever want to refinance this house, you ever want to sell the house altogether. Once you have coverages like this in place, it's a blanket mortgage protection that can go with you into any loan or any home that you're in. Okay, is that nice? All right. And so here's the deal. My job as your underwriter is I'm just going to spend a few minutes to get to know you, John and Mary. And based on that conversation, I'm going to be able to figure out which one of the 20 A-rated carriers that we use is the best match for you. And if I find a program that matches for you, most importantly, I think it's one that you can qualify for and it's one that's going to fit the budget, then what we're going to do is we're going to submit, and I'm going to submit an application direct to that carrier, an e-app, to see if we can get you approved. Now, the nice thing is these days, all the programs we have are non-medical. All right. So it's a pretty painless process. It's normally a simple e-application, a couple DocuSigns, and we're off and running. Now, a lot of these carriers are going to give us an instant decision on the spot. So if we do this right, we'll be able to get off the call today and you'll actually have active coverage. Sometimes it can take up to a week for the carriers to get back to us with a yes or a no. But either way, there's still no pressure today to make the absolute final decision. So I want to take all the pressure off because in the state that you're in, the nice thing is that even after you pick a coverage and it literally starts a 30-day clock, called a 30-day free look period. What that means is you actually have an entire 30 days to sit with this coverage. So you guys can read over the policy, you can discuss it, you can pray about it, you can fight about it, talk to the dog about it, meditate, whatever you do to make your financial decisions in your home. By the time this thing is set in stone, it's what you wanted and what nobody else wanted. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So let's jump into it. That right there takes me less than a few minutes. It was longer because I'm talking to myself, on the camera, and it's awkward, right? I'm literally staring at an audience of me. And so normally it's a little bit, it goes quick. So I'm literally out of that and into the financial inventory in like a few minutes at most. No real time for rapport. And I actually do a financial inventory. I have it set right in front of me, just like I do in the home. Don't ever do an appointment without your financial inventory. This is your roadmap on everything. And if you're brand new, do not half-ass the financial inventory. There's nothing more frustrating than a new agent that doesn't take the time to fill out this financial inventory completely and then turns around and hits the underwriting genie or their upline support to try to help them. If I can't see a full snapshot on what you're dealing with, I can't make a proper diagnosis. If I'm a doctor and they're the patient, it would be like walking in on a nurse that filled out 3 things on the main lab report, and I'm supposed to make a diagnosis on this person. I take it deadly serious. I need to see the whole picture. Guess what Jacob's doing when I get off this Zoom? We're changing that whole go to sleep thing. I'm going to sit here with this mouse. Anyway, so fill out the full financial inventory. All right. And so as I'm going through the financial inventory, this is, it's all, well, let's just roll with it. It's 4:36. I told myself I'd be done at 4:45. So let's get it all out. So as I'm going through it, I'll go through the loan balance and I'll say this. I'll say, all right, John, was this a refi or a new purchase? It was a refi. The rates were great. Fantastic. 15, 20, or 30-year note. It's a 30-year. All right, great. How long have you lived at the home? We've been here 5 years. Okay. And the loan balance is 200 grand. If you were to sell the home in today's market, what do you think you'd sell it for? It appraised at 250. Fantastic. So you got 50,000 in equity. What's your monthly payment? It's about 1,100 a month. Okay, great. Now, are you and Mary both on the loan, or is it just loan and title, or is it just you? I'm just on the loan because it's VA, and she's also on the title. Okay, fantastic. Now, do you guys have a family trust or like a living trust to protect your estate? No, we don't have one of those yet. Okay. All right. So, John, I got your date of birth is 10/21/71, and I've got Mary's is 10/22/72. Is that right? Okay, perfect. So it makes you X amount of age. All right. Are you a smoker or not? Okay, non. Perfect. What do you do for work? I'm a truck driver. Okay. How much do you bring home a month? About 5 grand. All right. Do you have any life insurance? Private or at work? Yeah, I got some at work. Okay, great. Listen, work insurance is fantastic. By the way, guys, I'm dropping nuggets as we go because I don't believe you can overcome objections in sales. I believe you can only prevent them. Let me say that again. A lot of people are like, how do I overcome an objection? Guys, you have to prevent them. So there's little nuggets in here that I'm dropping along the way that are actually preventing. I'm handling the objection before it comes out so I can prevent it, right? The whole, let me take the pressure off and all that stuff. Guess what that does? That gets rid of the, we need to think about it at the end. That really helps cut that down to where I don't get that as much, okay? And so anyway, I'll say, listen, work insurance is fantastic. I always tell people load up on it. It's dirt cheap. Problem is, if you stop working, it stops too. You know that, right? Yes. Okay. All right. Do you have anything that, here's the magic question. Do you have anything that acts like life insurance to pay the house off, like a 401k, IRA, stock, or anything like that that could help offset that mortgage if something did happen to you? Yeah, I got a 401k at work. Okay, great. Mary, how about you? Do you work? No, I stay home and raise the kids. Oh, you got kids? Great. How many kids you got? Oh, I got 2. I got 3. 9, 6, 2 little boys that are a handful, and I got a brand new 6-month-old baby girl. So that's awesome. Okay, like I said before, it's non-medical, John, but they're still going to look at some basic medical during the underwriting in order to make an approval, okay? So are you on medications for any health issues? Like what health issues do you have? High blood pressure, and I'm on a cholesterol med. Okay, great. Anything else serious like heart attacks, strokes, cancers in the past, kidney, liver issues, any lung issues, any like diabetes, anything like that now or in the past? Okay, no, good. All right. Any serious hospitalizations or surgeries? Gallbladder out a couple years ago. Okay, gotcha. Other than that, no. Okay, great. What's your height and weight? 6 foot, 220. Perfect. And then I'll go through Mary at the same time. All right. Looking at this is the other key that you need to understand with virtual. I know there are people that can go after bigger premiums in the virtual world just like you can in the home. However, I have found that I'm looking for somewhere like if they're like, basically Mac Agabor, I think's got the percentages great. That's a great rule of thumb. It's like 3, 5, and 7% of their household income or their monthly income is what they can afford in premium. He told me that the other day, and I know he got it from somewhere else. And honestly, if you do the numbers on it, that'll give you the options of kind of the premium that you can pitch somebody, and you're going to find that magic sweet spot so that you don't give them a huge sticker shock to where you lose them, or you undercut yourself by selling way too low a premium, which brand new agents, your premium's normally really tiny because you're not strong yet. And you're scared to show bigger premiums because in your mind, you're scared of price because you haven't learned how to build value yet. Okay. So in this particular instance, sometimes I'll go after husband and wife, but as a general rule of thumb on this first appointment, I'm really just looking for one bird in hand is better than 2 in the bush. So really I'm focused in on one person. I'm trying to get something, because if I get something, I can always circle the wagons back around during a biannual review or whatever. Even at the end of the phone call, I can even figure out if there's something else in the budget as far as getting a second policy. So that's definitely a little bit different than when I was in the home. Is I'm not trying to go for as much. I'm just trying to get something. Okay. So in this particular instance, I'll say, hey, John, obviously you're the primary breadwinner. Mary's not bringing in an income. If you get smoked tomorrow on that truck, dude, Mary is screwed. She's out on the street with the kids. And I'm sure that's why you mailed this in, because you're worried that you want to make sure that doesn't happen. Is that right? Yes. Okay. Well, then I'm going to focus in on John right now. If there's enough in the budget, we'll circle the wagons back around and maybe we'll put something on Mary, because I think it is important too. You can't put a price tag on a stay-at-home wife. My wife is staying home too. My wife is stays at home too with the kids. And, so if I was to price that out, to be honest, it would probably cost more money to service what she does in the home than what I probably bring to the home. But at least we can count my check right now. Hers is kind of hypothetical. Okay. So we're going to stick with John for now. And all right. So, and then at that point, I'll say, hey, John, Mary, I'm going to run some numbers real quick and we'll go over your options. If you guys need to get up, need to go to the bathroom, something like that, I can barely walk and chew gum. So if it sounds like I'm trailing off, I'm not trailing off on you. I'm focused. So we can keep talking, but I'm just letting you know I'm focused on this. And then when I come up for air, we'll go over that. Okay, great. And then just so you guys know, when you're running virtual, your tech is everything. So on my office, I got a big screen, if you could see it. So I've got their mailer up. I've got insurancetoolkits.com is my favorite quoting tool. If you're not using that, I think you're nuts. It's $29 a month. And it has all of the quotes and e-apps pretty much preloaded in one location. Now, so you need to have that up, and you need to have all of your other stuff. You need to have the quoting tools. You need to be organized. You need to have your e-apps. All of that should be worked out ahead of time. You should have already logged in. You should have already practiced to go to that e-app before you even sat down to do the appointment. And, you've got it all saved and bookmarked just in case. All right. Because when you are doing telesales, and one thing I will tell you is tech can kill you if you're not organized. Because when you're sitting in front of them in the home, you just whip it around and tell them sign right here and you're done. You've got full control. In this particular instance, you don't necessarily have that, okay? And then, so anyway, in this particular instance, I'm running quotes or whatever, and I basically get done and I'll say, listen, all right, so John, here's the deal. I've got a couple options for you, okay? Obviously, if I can, I'm going to Americo. We always go Americo first, and then everybody else second, okay? So I'll say, listen, I got three options for you. Okay. I've got, all three of these options, just to let you know up front, is a full payoff for the home, meaning you die, it's going to pay the house off for marrying the kids. Okay. All three of these options also have living benefits, which to me are as important or sometimes more important than the death benefit alone. Meaning if you get really sick or really hurt, it will also pay. Okay. And then a couple of these options actually will give you, if you don't use it, will actually give you your money back at the end in tax-free cash back. So I call it the policy that always pays, which is pretty neat because your other policies don't work like that, right? Your homeowners and all that other stuff, if you don't use it, you don't get the value out of it, okay? And so typically in that instance, I'll show, I'll write a T125, a CBO 50, or like a CBO 100. I know some people don't like giving those types of options, but I'll run through them top to bottom. I'll say, listen, 100% cash back is X. If you want half your cash back, it's X. And of course, I'll tell them what the total cash back is. And then if cash back's not important to you and you're just trying to be really budget conscious because you just, you're not sure if it's in the budget, let's put it, we'll put an application in with the cheapest. All right. And so anyway, here's your three options. And here's the key. I'll say, I know you can't make a decision on the spot, but if you were to pick one of these three, which one do you think we would go with? Great. CBO 100, you like the whole thing? Fantastic. Let's see if we can get you approved. All right. Now, you already got a text of my license, to prove who I am. I need to make sure if it's on phone, I need to make sure that, you are who you are. I have to say that I've checked your ID. So here's my cell number. Do me a favor, pull your ID out, take a picture of it real quick. I need you to text it over to me. Okay. Now, while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and pull this e-app up. And then basically from this process, John, is going to take about maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to go through, I'm going to submit the first part of the application, and then it's going to send you a DocuSign to do what's called a pre-check. Okay. We're going to sign that. It's one signature. And then I'm going to hit initiate underwriting. We're going to do a quick pre-check. And if the carrier comes back from pre-check and says, yes, there's a really good chance we're getting an instant approval today. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and fill out the rest of the information, make sure we get the beneficiary right. Also, whatever account you want this to come off of, checking your savings. If you don't have that info handy, I need the routing number and account number. So go ahead and grab that. We'll need it in a minute. And then obviously at the end, there'll be a final signature DocuSign that'll go out, and then we'll submit it and see if we can get you approval on the spot. Okay. And boom. So that's pretty much how I set it up. And of course, there's senior mortgage and things like that. So, all right, it's 4:45. I'm going to run through this real quick. I'm going to look through the feed and see if there's any specific questions or anything like that. This is good stuff. Thanks. Love the script. Yeah, we'll get the recording out. What if they do have a family trust? That's a great question, Robert. That's kind of a more of an advanced question. I don't use it as much as I did in the home. Well, okay. So let me tell you why I asked the family trust question, because I'm going to use that as a legitimate tool to actually show them how they have holes in their game. So like, I'll give an example. In this particular scenario, John is on the loan, but Mary's not, because she didn't have an income. They don't have a living trust in place. So in that particular instance, I could say, hey, you don't have a trust in place, so you don't want to mess, you don't want to mess around by having something that doesn't, that goes to probate. You guys really should get a living trust in place. But the good news is mortgage protection is just like life insurance. In fact, mortgage protection is built on a life insurance chassis. It's all underregulated underneath the same umbrella. So you got three major chassis. It's either built on a term chassis, a universal chassis, or a whole chassis. In this particular situation, we're using a universal chassis. So what's nice about it is it will actually pass to the beneficiary and it does not go to probate. So until you get that estate plan in place right now, because I'll be honest, there's a good chance everybody could get screwed in this deal if you died tomorrow, John, in that truck, because you have a massive hole in your game by not having a living trust in place. Now, again, I'm not an attorney, but you need to get hooked up with one, and you really need to get a trust in place, especially because you have property. So, but in the meantime, let's put this in place because you don't have to worry about it. It's going to pass straight to the beneficiary. It'll give her the opportunity to pay this house off, so she's not having to requalify for loan if the loan's not assumable, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I use that trust question as a way to build value on the fact that they've got a massive hole in their estate game right now. Meaning if John dies tomorrow, they might think that they're okay, but they are not okay. They have not built their estate plan properly, and life insurance is a part of that. Okay. So anyway, that's that's how I use that. Mac asked, love this. Do I ever have trouble getting banking info without setting the table up front what I need? Not really. I don't. I do say that Mac, I've heard you now dial. I've heard Brandon dial. I would say, guys, that I would use Brandon or like Mac's, Brandon Kitching's script of, hey, listen, in order to submit this request for coverage, we're going to be asking for some very sensitive pieces of information because the insurance company requires it. I'm going to need your social. I'm going to need, name, address, and we're going to need bank account information on whatever payment they're going to be drawing this out of. So before we even get into that, is that going to be a problem? I actually love that for setting the table, Mac. And actually, I should add that because I think it would probably improve my closing ratios or even weed out riffraff in the beginning. I haven't adapted it yet. So great question. My Zoom address, yes. All right, cool. So with that said, we're 50 minutes after. Thanks for the compliments. Thanks for the questions, guys. I don't see anything else on there, so we're going to wrap things up. So again, at the end of the day, you're not going to get everything you need in one training. Guys, this is a process. There is a learning curve with insurance. This is a profession. This is not a side hustle, okay? So give it the respect that respect is due. Nothing irritates me more than somebody getting in this game. They can, it only costs them a couple $100 to get an insurance license. They can get licensed in 2 weeks. They get contracted $40 in an E&O and a couple grand to get started in the game. The strength is low barrier of entry. The weakness is low barrier of entry. You get in the game, you jump in, and you start going through this, and you think you're going to make $1 million a minute in the next 3-4 months, because the guy next to you heard did, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know if I like this. And I'm like, this is the same person that graduated from high school, went to a college that's charging them 4 times more money than the degree is worth. They're going $250,000 into student loan debt for an underwater basket weaving degree in liberal arts studies that has 0 ROI in the real world. And they won't make a dime off of that for 4 years. The way that I'm the starving student all day long, I'm eating top ramen and macaroni and cheese. I'm going to change the world. And they don't expect to ever make an ROI on that degree. But yet they can get started here, go through a low barrier of entry for a few grand. They can go out there and they get their butt whooped a little bit, right? get thick-skinned, get through this learning curve because sales is not emotionally easy, but you're going to get yourself out of your comfort zone. You're going to go get your 100 appointments in. You're going to get through that learning curve as fast as you can. Some of you will get it done in a month because you're serious. Others, you're lazy, and you're going to draw this out for 6 months, and it's going to be the most painful thing we've ever seen in our life. And then by the time you get through that learning curve, you're honestly telling me that I can make an income that puts me in like the top 1% ever in the world, because financial services and real estate, insurance, if you look at the top amount, the industry that makes the most amount of millionaires than anybody else over the last 20 years, ratio-wise, comes out of this space right here, and that's it. That's the barrier of entry. And I'm just going to tell you right now, there's probably 200 of you on here. I'm talking to maybe 5 of you. The other 195, you're not even going to be here in 90 days. And that's a challenge. You can say, hey, dumb redneck for the Ozarks, I'm here in 90 days, right? That's a challenge. I'm telling you, most people in real estate or insurance or anything else, when they get that license, they wash out because they're not willing to go through it. They're not tough enough. But you know what? You're different. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday. You could be sitting there watching something else, but you're here trying to get better. So my challenge to you is get through those 100 appointments, get out there, join the Zoom rooms, and get to work. And let's go out there and take this thing by storm. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have an amazing day.